November 29, 1944. The waters south of Japan, through the pale moonlight, a massive shadow glides silently across the Pacific. 70,000 tons of armored steel, pushing through a restless black sea. Her name, Shinano, the largest aircraft carrier ever built. 872 feet of steel ambition. Japan's engineers called her unsinkable, her admirals called her invincible, but the ocean, indifferent and endless, was about to decide otherwise. Below the surface, stalking through cold currents, a single predator waits, the American submarine USS Archerfish, commanded by Joseph Enright, a man chasing redemption in the closing months of a brutal war. Neither side knows it yet, but the next few minutes will rewrite naval history. The story of Shinano is not one of battle. It's a story of silence, precision, and fate, where patience defeated pride, and a whisper beneath the waves destroyed an empire's final dream. To understand why she sailed that night, we go back to 1942. The Battle of Midway. Point 4 of Japan's proudest carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, lost in one day. A catastrophe that shattered Japan's naval supremacy and left her admirals searching for redemption. In the aftermath, the order came: build something the world has never seen, something colossal. Something that could restore faith in the empire. And so, from the ashes of defeat, Shinano was born. Originally laid down as the third Yamato-class battleship, she was to join her massive sisters, Yamato and Musashi, floating fortresses of steel. But as the war changed, so did her purpose. In secret, under cover of tarps and scaffolds, she was transformed, not into a battleship, but into the world's largest aircraft carrier, designed to support and repair other carriers, a moving fortress of aviation and logistics. Her armor was thicker than any carrier before her. Her designers boasted she could survive a dozen torpedo hits, a claim born more from pride than physics. In the eyes of the Imperial Navy, Shinano wasn't just a ship, she was proof that Japan's spirit, and its engineers, could still turn the tide. But hubris was being welded into her frame. Every plate, every rivet, carried a quiet arrogance, a belief that mass could defeat precision, that armor could defy fate. By late 1944, the empire that built her was crumbling. American bombers darkened Japan's skies almost daily. Fuel was scarce. Hope was scarcer, yet the Admiralty clung to Shinano as a symbol, a promise that the war was not yet lost. Inside Yokosuka Naval Arsenal, welders worked through the nights beneath blackout curtains. The shipyard glowed dimly with sparks, like fireflies clinging to the last breath of a dying empire. She was not ready, everyone knew it. Pipes unfinished, bulkheads unsealed, watertight doors still untested. But Tokyo could wait no longer. American reconnaissance planes had already spotted her outline. If she stayed, she'd die in dock. So the order came down from the highest levels: Shinano must sail. November 28, 1944. 6:00 p.m. The tide was rising, and with it, the weight of expectation. Under a moonless sky, Shinano eased out of Yokosuka harbor. No band played. No fanfare, only the low hum of turbines and the silent watch of her skeleton crew. Her destination, Kure Naval Base, where she would finally complete fitting out and receive her aircraft complement. But tonight, she was half finished, and half manned. Barely a third of her crew were trained sailors. The rest, yard workers, mechanics, and new recruits, still carried the smell of oil and steel on their hands. As she glided southward into open sea, sparks from unfinished welding still glowed on her decks, proof of how unfinished she truly was. Her escorts, 3 destroyers, Isokes, Hamakes, and Yukikes, trailed behind her, unaware that they were sailing through a killing ground. For months, American submarines had prowled these waters, unseen, patient, deadly. In theory, Shinano could survive a dozen torpedo hits. In practice, she could barely survive a high-speed turn without flooding her lower decks. The largest moving target in the Pacific had just left the safety of land, and stepped into a sea that no longer belonged to Japan. That same night, in the quiet black expanse south of Tokyo Bay, a lone submarine moved through the depths, the USS Archerfish. Inside her narrow control room, Commander Joseph Enright leaned over the sonar display, searching for meaning in echoes. He had failed once before, a hesitation that haunted him. Now, he sought redemption beneath a foreign SEA. At 8 p.m., a faint radar echo appeared, large, fast, zigzagging at 20 knots. Enright raised the periscope. Through the mist and moonlight, he saw something enormous, too big for a cruiser, too fast for a transport that he whispered, "What in God's name is that?" Headquarters gave no orders. No confirmation. So Enright made his own shadow the target. For 6 long hours, the Archerfish crept parallel to the massive silhouette. Every few minutes, the periscope rose, a ghostly circle of glass catching glimpses of an empire's last gamble. Below deck, the air was heavy with diesel and sweat. The men whispered around gauges, every sound amplified by nerves. Every minute, the distance closed. Enright plotted course and bearing with a stopwatch, timing each turn, patient, cold, precise. The art of the hunt demanded silence, and he gave it. Around 3 a.m., fate turned. Shinano changed course, a sweeping maneuver that exposed her starboard flank. Enright's eyes locked on the periscope. It was the moment he had waited for his entire career. Standby tubes 1 through 6. The command echoed through steel, fire. 6 torpedoes roared from Archerfish's bow, each one slicing through black water toward history. 45 seconds later, the Pacific exploded. 4 detonations, deep, heavy, thunder rolling beneath the sea. The crew of Archerfish felt the shock through the hull. Then, silence. No counterattack. No depth charges. Only the distant rumble of destruction. They didn't know it yet, but in that silence, the world's largest warship had been fatally struck. Aboard Shinano, the impact was chaos. 4 torpedoes slammed below her armored belt, flooding boiler rooms, rupturing storage tanks, crippling the ship's very lungs. Lights flickered. Pumps failed. Orders shouted, unanswered. Half the compartments had no telephones, no communication. Messages were carried by running men, ankle deep in rising water. Captain Toshio Abe, proud but cautious, believed his ship could survive. He ordered full speed ahead, hoping to reach shallow waters near the coast, but the speed drove seawater through every unsealed seam. What was meant to save her was killing her faster. Within 30 minutes, the great carrier listed 5 degrees to starboard. Flooding grew. Panic spread. Still, officers reassured the crew, the ship will hold. She wouldn't. By dawn, the list reached 10 degrees, fuel and seawater sloshed together on the lower decks, a death sentence for any ship. The destroyers circled helplessly, their crews staring in disbelief at the giant sinking before them. Japan's greatest warship was dying, not in battle, but in silence, unseen by any enemy eyes. November 29, 1944, 5 o'clock hours. A pale dawn creeps over the Pacific. The first light reveals what the night had hidden. The Shinano, bleeding steel into the sea, her vast hull tilts against the horizon, engines groaning beneath uneven weight. Inside her flooding compartments, sailors work blindly by flashlight. Salt water mixes with oil, pipes burst. Steam hisses. The sound is no longer that of a ship underway, it's the labored breathing of something dying. Captain Toshio Abe stands on the bridge, eyes fixed on the gray horizon. He knows the damage is severe, but pride forbids panic. He orders, maintain course. Full power. We'll reach shallow water. But his words are empty against physics. Each turn of the propeller forces thousands of gallons of seawater deeper into the hull. Unsealed bulkheads become channels, watertight doors, false hope. In the engineering spaces, men wade waist deep, trying to seal ruptures with wrenches, hammers, even mattresses. The pumps, barely installed, fail within minutes. Above them, the flight deck is eerily calm. The wind cuts across open steel, the rising sun glinting off the unfinished catapults. Men gather in small groups, whispering prayers, waiting for orders that never come. The destroyers, isokes, hamakes, and yukikes, circle nervously. They signal by lamp, but the replies from Shinano are delayed, confused, uncertain. Through their binoculars, officers can see the massive carrier settling lower by the bow. Aboard Shinano, junior officers plead to slow down, to assess damage, to seal the breaches. Captain Abe refuses. He believes her armor, her design, her very reputation, will save her. In those moments, pride outweighs logic. The same belief that built Shinano now blinds those who command her. Below deck, the list deepens to 10 degrees, loose tools slide across floors, fuel oil leaks through seams, turning passageways into slick, black rivers. Messages reach the bridge, boiler room 3 flooded. Electrical pumps down. Still, the captain insists, we continue. To the east, the destroyers exchange signals, None dare question command, they can only watch as the pride of their navy begins to die before their eyes. By 7 a.m., the list reaches 15 degrees, the ship slows to 10 knots, then 8. Steam rises from her funnels, mingling with mist, the smell of salt, oil, and burning insulation. Men are ordered to move ammunition and equipment to port side to balance the weight. It's a desperate, futile act, nothing can counter the sea's claim, deep below. Water rushes into empty voids designed for aircraft fuel, space is never meant to be flooded, every gallon of seawater adds more weight, every second, the ship's margin of survival narrows, damage control teams shout over the roar of pumps and collapsing bulkheads, messages arrive soaked, unreadable, the heat below decks grows unbearable, some men refuse to leave their posts, others collapse from exhaustion. A few, realizing the hopelessness, write short notes to their families, never to be sent above deck. The morning sun rises fully, from the bridge, Captain Abe watches the sea stretch endlessly around him. No enemy in sight. No gunfire, only the slow, relentless pull of the ocean. By 8 a.m., the ship's list has passed 20 degrees, crewmen now struggle to move across the tilted deck, equipment breaks loose. Barrels roll. Crates smash open, the destroyers attempt to tow the carrier toward the coast, thick steel cables straining under the load. Within minutes, each line snaps, whipping back like deadly serpents across the sea. Abe still refuses to abandon ship. He believes that to do so would dishonor the Navy, the Emperor, and his own command. Hold your positions, he shouts, but the ship no longer obeys him. Water floods faster than the crew can pump. In some compartments, the pressure seals doors shut, trapping men. Inside, from above, faint banging echoes through the hull, the desperate rhythm of those still alive below. By 9 a.m., the list is past 25 degrees, the carrier leans heavily, her towering island cutting across the morning sky. Crewmen begin jumping into the sea, ignoring orders, they know what the officers will not admit. Shinano is finished, fuel slick spread around her, the smell of oil and death thickens the air. Every few minutes, a muffled explosion shakes her interior, boilers rupturing, steam pipes bursting. Still, Abe remains on the bridge, staring ahead, whispering prayers to a sea that gives no mercy. He orders distress signals sent, but the radios are weak, the range too short. No rescue will come. 10:00 a.m. The deck now angles steeply, those still aboard cling to railings and ladders, watching as water creeps across the flight deck. Captain Abe finally gives the order. All hands, abandon ship. But it's already too late, escape hatches jammed. Passageways blocked, the great ship groans, a deep metallic roar that echoes through her frame like a dying beast. At 10:18 a.m., she rolls past 30 degrees, men slide, tumble, vanish beneath churning waves, the destroyers pull back, powerless to help. 10:57 a.m., with a final heave, Shinano turns on her side, her massive hull rises one last time, then slips beneath the surface stern first. The ocean closes over her within seconds. Silence, only wreckage remains, floating wood, oil, and hundreds of men struggling in the cold Pacific. Out of roughly 2,400 aboard, fewer than half will survive. Some are pulled from the water by destroyers, many more vanish, dragged down by suction or drowned in oil. Captain Abe goes down with his ship, the last man seen on the bridge. His body will never be found. In the span of 17 hours, Japan's greatest warship, the pride of her navy, is gone. The sea, once again, has the final word. On the destroyer's decks, survivors shiver in shock. None speak that they've witnessed the impossible, the unsinkable ship swallowed whole. Radio silence is ordered, the tragedy must be hidden, the Empire cannot afford another blow to its pride. As the destroyers turn north, oil burns faintly on the surface behind them, a black scar stretching across the sea. Some sailors look back, unable to believe what they've seen, others bow their heads and whisper silent prayers. The Pacific has claimed another secret, and for the Japanese Admiralty, the truth of Shinano's fate will become the silence they fear most. November 30th, 1944, Guam Naval Base, Pacific Ocean. At dawn, the crew of the USS Archerfish, SS-311, surfaces after a tense night. The sea is calm. The horizon glows faintly gold. Inside the submarine, men stare at the periscope log, still unsure what they've done. Commander Joseph F. Enright, exhausted, leans over the plotting table. His hands are steady, but his voice trembles with disbelief. All 6 fish were fired, he mutters. 4 hit. Then, she just vanished. No explosions of aviation fuel. No depth charges from escorts, only oil and debris surfacing hours later. At 0800 hours, Enright radios a simple message to headquarters: engaged large target. Possible battleship or carrier. 4 hits. Ship sunk. In Pearl Harbor, the message is received with skepticism. Archerfish was a Below-class submarine, not known for miraculous victories. Intelligence officers suspect an exaggeration, but Enright's crew knows what they saw: a colossal silhouette, unlike any carrier in service. Some swear it was as wide as a battleship. Others recall its flight deck stretching into the mist. They had tracked it for 6 hours through darkness, maintaining periscope depth, silent and patient. They never knew the name Shinano. To them, it was simply, the biggest damn ship we've ever seen. 2 days later, Archerfish docks at Guam. Enright steps ashore, pale and silent that he knows the Navy will question his report. They always do. In the debriefing room, officers from COMSOPAC, the U.S. Submarine Force, Pacific Fleet, wait with clipboards and suspicion. A young lieutenant smirks. A battleship, Commander. Alone. With no air cover. Enright simply nods. Yes. We trailed her at 18 knots. She zigzagged. Escorted by destroyers. Then slowed. We fired 6 torpedoes. 4 confirmed hits. The room grows quiet. The lieutenant glances at the senior officer, Captain John Chick Clary. Clary served on submarines himself. He knows that tone. That look in the eyes. Gentlemen, Clary says softly. I believe him. Still, the Navy demands proof. Without wreckage, without photographs, it's just another claim in the chaos of war. Enright signs his report. Target, large carrier or battleship, unconfirmed class. Result, sunk. Then he returns to his boat. His men are already cleaning the torpedo room, the smell of diesel and salt thick in the air. That they've done their job, but they don't know yet that they've just changed naval history. Weeks pass. Pearl Harbor analysts begin cross-checking intercepted Japanese communications. Point 1 code fragment repeats, carrier Shinano, lost, south of Honshu. The words electrify the intelligence division. Shinano, one officer says aloud. We didn't even know she was launched. Only a handful of men in Washington had ever heard that name. A rumored supercarrier, born from the hull of a Yamato-class battleship. A vessel of almost mythic proportions. They check the coordinates of Archerfish's attack. That it matches exactly where the Japanese report places Shinano sinking. Confirmation arrives in early December. The U.S. Navy officially credits Commander Joseph F. Enright with sinking the world's largest aircraft carrier, with a single submarine. At Guam, when Enright receives the telegram, he reads it twice. His executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Luke S. Garrett, laughs in disbelief. You're serious? That was their supercarrier. Enright doesn't laugh. He simply folds the paper and says quietly, then may God rest their souls. The crew celebrates that night, but it's not jubilation. It's awe. They had stalked a shadow, unaware it was Japan's last great hope. In the wardroom, over 10 mugs of coffee, one sailor says softly, Sir, we sent 1,400 men to the bottom, didn't we? Enright looks at him for a long moment. Yes, son. We did. The laughter fades. They all remember the faces of the enemy sailors who never saw them, the men who built that ship, proud and certain of its strength. The ocean takes both pride and pity. A week later, Enright receives orders for return to Pearl Harbor. When he steps ashore, reporters crowd the docks, flashes popping, voices shouting, Commander, is it true you sank a supercarrier? Enright keeps his tone measured. I don't know about super. All I know is, we did our duty. He is awarded the Navy Cross, though he rarely speaks of it again. To him, the sinking is not a triumph, it is a haunting. Years later, in interviews, Enright would admit, we didn't know what she was. I only learned the truth after the war. I thought about her often. She went down fast. Too fast. The Archerfish returns to service, its crew hailed as heroes, but in every patrol log afterward, Enright writes a quiet line near the end for those who did not return. In the archives of Pearl Harbor, photographs of Shinano finally surface, massive, majestic, her flight deck still untested. Officers stare at the image and shake their heads. This was the ship we never got to fight, one says. For the Americans, Shinano's sinking is a stunning victory. For the Japanese, it's an unbearable silence. The Pacific grows colder as winter approaches. Each side prepares for the final year of the war, a year that will bring the fall of empires, and the dawn of the atomic AGEI in the deep, where sunlight cannot reach. The steel bones of Shinano rest untouched. She lies on her starboard side, 4,000 meters down, her great hull cracked, her guns silent. No divers, no salvage crews, no recovery, only the slow drift of silt, the eternal dark of the ocean floor. Above, waves roll endlessly across the coordinates once marked in Enright's logbook. No marker, no buoy, no trace, only a name whispered by history. Shinano, the ship that should have been Japan's salvation, became its quietest grave. December 2nd, 1944, Yokosuka Naval Headquarters. 3 days after Shinano's loss, a gray morning hangs over Tokyo Bay. A cold rain falls on the flagpoles of the Imperial Japanese Navy's High Command. No announcement has been made. No headlines. Only whispers. Inside the Naval Headquarters, a closed-door meeting begins. The corridors are silent, guards posted at every entrance. The word Shinano is spoken only in low voices, as though saying it aloud could invite shame. At the center of the table sits Admiral Toyota Somu, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet. Before him, a single telegram. 4 lines of text: Shinano sunk. Heavy loss of life. Cause under investigation. Toyota reads the message twice, then, without emotion, sets it down. He removes his glasses, and says quietly, impossible. To his right, Vice Admiral Agaki Matome lowers his head. He helped oversee the Shinano's conversion, the pride of their engineering corps, a ship they believed untouchable. He murmurs, it cannot be true. She was built from the hull of Yamato herself. An aide enters, trembling, with the first survivor reports. Oil-soaked, half-conscious sailors rescued by destroyers described the same horror: 4 torpedoes. 1 submarine. No surface contact. Toyota's hand tightens around his pen. 1 American submarine. Impossible. She was escorted by 3 destroyers. But the reports are consistent. They name the time, the location, even the direction from which the torpedoes came. Each account ends the same way: the ship listed, and never stopped. Toyota stands, pacing slowly before the map of the Philippine Sea. He points to the coordinates where Shinano went down, then turns to his staff. Who was the enemy? No one answers. Finally, a staff officer says in a faint voice, reports suggest, it was a single submarine. Possibly the USS Archerfish. The words hang in the air like a curse. A lone submarine, an American hunter in the vast Pacific, had sunk the largest carrier ever built. Agaki slams his hand on the table. 1 submarine. Do you realize what that means? Another officer whispers, it means our faith in armor and speed was misplaced. Toyota says nothing. He stares out the window toward the misty harbor, where the unfinished hulls of other ships rust silently in their slips. He knows what this loss means, not just militarily, but symbolically. For years, Japan's naval doctrine was built on pride, massive ships, thick armor, and the myth of invincibility. Now that myth lies broken beneath 4,000 meters of cold Pacific water. The meeting continues for hours. Charts are reviewed, orders examined, escorts blamed, but in every argument, one fact remains unshakable: the Shinano had never even been declared operational. She had no watertight integrity tests. No sea trials. In their rush to deliver her, to prove Japan still possessed naval might, they sent her to sea half-finished, and now she was gone. Toyota finally speaks, gentlemen, the enemy did not sink Shinano. Our arrogance did. Silence. No one writes that in the report. Instead, the official statement is drafted carefully: Shinano lost due to unforeseen circumstances following submarine attack. The Emperor is informed that a new carrier has been lost, but her name is omitted. Not even the crew's families are told the full truth. Letters home refer to a training accident. In Yokosuka shipyards, workers whisper as rumors spread, that a ship larger than the Yamato has vanished. No one dares ask where or how. Meanwhile, American intelligence intercepts Japanese transmissions and confirms the impossible. The massive Shinano, only 10 days into service, is gone, sunk by USS Archerfish, commanded by Commander Joseph F. Enright. When word reaches Pearl Harbor, officers can hardly believe it. The submarine that had once been dismissed as unlucky has achieved one of the greatest single kills in naval history. But for the Japanese Admiralty, disbelief turns to humiliation. Their unsinkable ship had never even fired a shot. In his diary, Admiral Ugaki writes, "The gods have turned their faces from us. Even steel born of Yamato cannot withstand the sea's judgment." By mid-December, Shinano's name is erased from naval rosters, her record sealed, her photographs locked away. Officially, she never existed. But the loss seeps into the fleet's morale like salt into a wound. Sailors whisper, if Shinano could be sunk, what ship is safe now? Even aboard the Yamato, still the mightiest battleship afloat, crewmen glance at the sea with new fear. They've seen what one submarine can do. At headquarters, Toyota drafts new orders. All capital ships are to remain in port unless absolutely necessary. Japan can no longer risk another Shinano. As 1944 turns to 1945. The war's tide is irreversible. The U.S. Navy now commands the skies and seas. Japan's superweapons, symbols of pride, have become floating tombs. The admirals who once dreamed of ruling the Pacific now rule only silence. Every sunrise brings new defeat, every sunset, another report of loss, and somewhere beneath the waves, the Shinano sleeps, the last of her kind, her story buried under secrecy and shame. For decades, Japan would not speak of her. No memorial. No ceremony. Only memory, whispered among the few who survived that cold November night, and in those whispers, one truth endures: the greatest enemy of the Imperial Navy was not America's might, but its own pride. Tokyo, December 2, 1944. Inches a dimly lit conference room at the Imperial Japanese Navy headquarters. Senior admirals gather in stunned silence. A coded message has arrived from the Yokosuka Naval District. Its contents unbelievable, unthinkable. Carrier Shinano, lost. Cause, submarine attack. Time, approximately 10:57 a.m., November 29. Admiral Somu Toyota, Chief of the Navy General Staff, lowers the telegram slowly. He reads it again, his face ashen. The Shinano, already gone. Around the table, disbelief ripples. A 70,000-ton fortress, the pride of the empire, sunk in less than 17 hours at SEA. No air raids, no battle fleet engagement, just gone. Admiral Matsuda Chiaki, once proud of the ship's construction, slams his fist on the table. Impossible. She had Yamato armor. No submarine can pierce that. But deep down, every man knows the truth. Japan's engineers had warned, the ship was unfinished, rushed, incomplete. Hubris had launched her before she was ready, and now thousands were dead because of it. Captain Toshio Abe, the commanding officer, went down with his ship, loyal, steadfast, bound by honor. He had believed Shinano could not sink. He had believed wrong. Within hours, the Navy Censors Act. All records of Shinano are classified top secret. Survivors are summoned, interrogated, and sworn to silence under penalty of imprisonment. No newspapers mention her. No radio broadcast admits her existence. Even among the fleet, she becomes a ghost ship, erased from the empire's memory. In the Yokosuka shipyards, workers whisper in disbelief. They had welded her hull, painted her decks, watched her depart under moonlight, and now she's gone. The dry dock crews burn remaining blueprints to prevent Allied intelligence from learning her design. For the engineers, it is a quiet heartbreak. The Shinano had been their last masterpiece, a carrier built from the bones of a battleship. A monument to Japan's final hope of naval supremacy. Now, that hope lies rusting at the bottom of the Pacific. As the war drags on, the Japanese Navy turns inward. Airfields, kamikaze units, and coastal defense replace dreams of supercarriers. The age of massive steel giants has ended. By mid-1945, Japan's once mighty fleet is shattered. Yamato herself will soon sail on her final, doomed mission, Operation Tengo, and join Shinano beneath the sea. But in the final months of the war, the Admiralty still refuses to admit Shinano ever existed. Her name is stricken from the Naval Register, her loss, a state secret buried with the empire itself. when the Emperor surrenders on August 15, 1945, no mention of Shinano is made. The Allies never even knew she sailed. It will take years. And the opening of captured Japanese archives, before the truth surfaces. In 1947, American intelligence officers pouring through Tokyo's war documents uncover a single line in a naval loss report. Shinano, sunk by enemy submarine, November 29, 1944. The discovery shocks even seasoned analysts. Wait, one officer mutters. The Shinano? That was a Yamato-class hull. Another replies quietly, then Archerfish really did it. For historians, it becomes one of the greatest maritime mysteries of the war, a ship that was built in secret, lost in silence, and remembered only by those who saw her die. In Japan, former shipyard workers begin to speak decades later. Once secrecy laws lapse, old men recall the clang of steel, the smell of oil and salt, the pride they once felt. One welder, now 82, tells a reporter, "We built her too fast. We were told she could not sink. But when she did, we understood, pride is not armor." Among survivors, memories remain vivid, the sound of rushing water, the angle of the deck tilting beneath their feet, the desperate scramble toward daylight. Many never forgave themselves for living when so many drowned. In a 1952 interview, one survivor said softly, "I remember Captain Abe standing on the bridge. He never left. He saluted us as the ship went under. We saluted back. Then he was gone." For the Japanese Navy, Shinano's loss becomes a symbol, not of defeat, but of overconfidence, of believing that sheer size could replace preparation and discipline. For the Americans, it becomes a legend, the largest ship ever sunk by a submarine, a victory unmatched in naval history. But for both nations, Shinano represents something deeper. The moment when the ocean itself humbled the pride of men. One Japanese historian later wrote, "The Shinano sank not only beneath the waves, but beneath the weight of belief that we could not fail." In the years after the war, her name is finally spoken again. At the rebuilt Yokosuka Naval Base, a small memorial plaque is mounted quietly near the water's edge. No ceremony, no speeches, only a line of engraved characters, in memory of those who served aboard the carrier Shinano. Lost November 29, 1944. May the sea guard their souls. Visitors rarely notice it, but those who do stand silently for a long time, staring out over the harbor where she once sailed. The tide moves in and out, whispering through the pilings, as if the ocean still remembers her name. And beneath the endless blue, in the darkness 4 kilometers down, Shinano sleeps, her steel hull becoming reef and memory. No lights, no sound, no pride. Only stillness. The ocean that claimed her has long since forgotten victory or defeat. It remembers only the silence, for in the end, that is how empires die, not with thunder, but with quiet water closing over steel. The sea south of Japan lies calm now. Beneath the endless expanse, almost 4,000 meters down, rests the Shinano, silent, untouched by light, her steel bones embraced by darkness. For decades, her resting place remained unknown. No records. No survivors could say exactly where she sank, her coordinates were lost to time, her name whispered only among those who once served her. It wasn't until April 2001, 57 years after she went down, that American oceanographic surveys finally detected a massive sonar echo, a shape larger than any ordinary wreck. A ghost from another war. Remotely operated cameras descended into the depths. Out of the black water emerged the unmistakable outline, a colossal hull, broken but intact. Bow. Buried deep in silt, her nameplate was gone, but the design left no doubt. After half a century of silence, the Shinano had been found. Images show her flight deck twisted, her massive armored belt still gleaming faintly under the lights. The torpedo holes that doomed her are visible, for gaping wounds across her starboard side. One engineer who saw the footage whispered, "Even in death, she looks proud." At the site, no human remains are visible, only fragments, tools, pipes, a single rusted wrench still resting where it was dropped that night. The ocean has claimed her completely, wrapping her in silence, erasing pain but not memory. For historians, the Shinano became more than a wreck, she became a monument, a warning written in steel. Her story is taught not as tragedy, but as testament, proof that war rewards not pride, but preparation, not might, but precision. In the decades that followed, Japan's Navy, reborn as the Maritime Self-Defense Force, would never again build a ship of such monstrous size. Instead, they built leaner vessels, efficient, balanced, disciplined. The lesson of Shinano endured quietly through every bolt and rivet. In the United States, Commander Joseph Enright lived the rest of his life with humility. He rarely spoke of the Shinano, though the Navy called it the most successful submarine attack in history. In a 1960 interview, when asked what he felt after learning he'd sunk the world's largest carrier, he simply said, "We didn't know what she was. We did our duty. The rest belongs to history." He never sought fame. To him, it wasn't triumph, just the grim arithmetic of war. Every torpedo meant lives. Every explosion meant loss. When he died in 2000, his ashes were scattered at sea, the same Pacific waters where he once waited in silence, staring through his periscope at an unknown giant sliding through the night. Today, both the hunter and the hunted lie beneath that same ocean, two stories joined forever in history's quiet ledger. For Japan, Shinano's fate symbolized the final collapse of imperial illusion, that armor, size, or steel could protect pride from consequence. For America, it marked the triumph of precision, patience, and unseen strength. But beyond nations, her story belongs to the sea, the endless, indifferent sea that swallowed her whole. In the words of a Japanese poet, carved years later into a small memorial stone at Yokosuka, she sailed too soon. She sank too deep. Yet in her fall, we learned to rise. Each year, on November 29th, a few aging veterans gather quietly by the harbor. They light incense, bow toward the horizon, and whisper her name, not in anger, not in shame, but in remembrance. No official ceremony, no speeches, only the sound of the tide, and the gulls circling above the calm gray water. For them, Shinano is not just a ship, she is a memory of youth, of duty, of a nation's final hope carried into the dark, and in that darkness, she became immortal. Her loss ended an empire's dream and began its reckoning. The USS Archerfish and IJN Shinano never met again, yet their encounter remains etched forever in naval history. A single shot across the deep, one submarine against a symbol, one moment that ended an era. From that night onward, the world understood, the ocean bows to no empire, no steel, no name. As the camera fades on the still sea, a final line appears across the screen. The Shinano, launched in secrecy, sunk in silence, remembered forever. The ocean swells softly, as if breathing her story one last time, then, nothing, only the sound of waves.